The Anonymous Janes are a group of women in the Final Fantasy XIV gaming community who have come forward to share their stories of abuse at the hands of one individual. I sat down with Jane number 1 and Jane number 2. Those numbers indicate which confession is theirs. You can listen to them all at anonymousjanes.wordpress.com. The next voice you'll hear besides mine belongs to Jane number 2. Thank you so much for joining me here today. Can you please briefly go over the events that brought all the Janes together?
We all happened to come across a certain person, and we've basically all been abused by the same person in the FFXIV community. And so at some point we would sit together and share our stories. That's how we came together.
What can you tell me about your new project, the Phoenix Down Initiative?
So the Phoenix Down Initiative is basically, will be a platform where people who are being abused or harassed can go to and maybe even get some information or help. We are not psychologists or anything, but we think that it's very important for people to know that there's a place they can go and a place where they'll be listened, and maybe then we can do something about it together.
What about trolls and such who are going to try to spread false claims through your platform?
Exactly. We actually discussed this topic as well. And of course, we will need to make sure that the stories brought to us are legit. So I guess it depends on case to case. I think when you get into a call with a person, you will at least then pretty soon find out if it's a troll or not. Yeah. And also we are working on security measures for preventing trolls to actually abuse this platform.
What is your response to people who are calling this just standard MMO drama?
Stop.
Yeah,
it's real.
Pretty much.
There are real people involved, and that's why we actually chose voice recordings, because we didn't just want to be another character. We're real. We're real humans with real emotions who really felt these things. And that's why the recordings were raw. That's why none of them were cut. That's why you hear people crying. What is it going to take, for them to realize that communities like Final Fantasy have been very tight-knit. I think it's a wonderful community, if we're going to be honest. FCs become family. Moogle Post magazines become family. People invest their heart and soul into this game and these people that they're meeting. It's not MMO drama. It's real with real people.
Yeah. Some of them are just the typical internet trolls having some fun, on the costs of others. Yeah, and I personally don't care about them that much because the amount of support is so overwhelming. And I mean, those 3 people who are, saying that this is only drama or e-thoughts, I don't know, screaming out. But yeah, I mean, wanting attention and stuff. Let them. It's fine. Everyone has their opinion. It doesn't have to be a great one. It's okay. Yeah. We know that we're speaking the truth. That's the thing. From the first day that we met, actually, I think I said that, guys, we need to relax here because we have the truth on our side. None of us is lying here.
As a fellow survivor of this exact same kind of emotional and verbal abuse, I found myself exchanging stories with the Janes and hearing those same stories echoed back. If they were trying to fool somebody, maybe they could do it with a lot of people, but not me. I lived it, they lived it, and we saw that it doesn't matter if you're online or offline, the pain and fear are just as real. Speaking from my experience, my abuser would go away, started to go away on the weekends, and I started to get some time away. And I noticed that when he was away, I started to feel really happy. And I felt like myself again.
Just to add to that, this certain individual that did this to us, he'll be awake for several days straight. But there were days where he wouldn't sign on because he'd obviously be asleep for 24 hours or whatever. And those were some of the greatest days that I had with my FC mates. We would have so much fun. And gradually I began to realize that I was only able to have fun in the video game when he wasn't around.
Right.
And that was a huge red flag. Like, I'm able to be myself. I'm able to sit back and have a couple drinks with these people and do primal runs, you know? Nobody cares if anyone messes up because it's hilarious and it's fun. But he would always try to control those situations in the FC. And I think that that was one of the big wake-up calls for me, was I'm able to be a different person when he's not around.
In Jane number 2's confession, she said that she needed to go to a psychiatric hospital for 6 weeks after her experience. I asked her if it was a direct result of what happened.
Absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, yes. I have a history with depression, and I take my meds and everything, and I go to therapy for, I think, 7 years now. Not because there's necessarily something incredibly wrong, but I tell people, go to therapy. It's good for everyone, honestly. It's good to have someone who tells you you're still on the right way or not. Being with him made me incredibly depressed again. So much so that they had to quadruple my doses in that hospital in the 7 weeks. And after like 3 weeks or so, it was like switching the lights back on. I became myself again slowly. And that was an amazing feeling because I missed myself. I missed myself so much because he made me into this bitter, jealous person who would constantly lash out at people in his regards, you know, and that wasn't me. And I told him too, like, this isn't me, and I'm sorry. I'm behaving like the biggest drama queen and bitch on the planet, and I don't know what the fuck is going on. And after I left him, I talked to friends, and they said maybe it's time to seek professional help. And I immediately called my doctor and told her what went on, and she said, would you like to go to the hospital? And I said, yeah, of course, why not? Wherever I can get help, you know, I want to work on this. I want to become myself again. And I am. And I'm so happy about it, honestly. It was a piece of work, and it still will be, but I'm okay. I'm finally more than just okay again.
It's just so relatable to me.
Yeah.
One thing you said was that when you were with him, you felt like he was destroying you.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really powerful thing to say to people who think that emotional manipulation is not a big deal and it's not destructive.
Yeah. And, it is, though. It is. I grew up with a very abusive father. He would be physical abusive, but even worse would be the way he was psychologically abusive, mentally abusive, to me personally. Because that's something I just, from the bottom of my heart, I don't understand. I don't understand what's so great about having people you say you care about, seeing them, you know, being hurt. That's terrible. That's not fun, and that's not okay. And I don't know how people actually feed off that at all. Like, I don't understand it. And I'm not a stupid person, I'm pretty sure. But this is one of the things in life I think I will never understand. How can you, like, from 1 minute to the other, switch personalities, basically, and turn what's dearest to me to my biggest fear? How? Like, of course, when you like someone, you open up to them, right? And you tell them about your fears. And how dare you using those against me? How fucking dare you? And so that's what I mean when I said I felt like he was destroying me. You know, it's like he was pressuring the right points to make me do whatever he wanted, to make me shut up, to make me believe I was just jealous and I didn't have any right in telling him that it's not okay that he would tell several women at once that they're special to him, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's gaslighting. I mean, he was destroying me, definitely.
So some people have said they don't want to talk about your stories. They don't want to get involved. Like in a best case scenario, maybe they see this as a way of like respecting you and your privacy. But you published this in a public way. So what is it that you really want from the community in terms of discussion?
This isn't about him. Whether or not he makes it about him, it's not. We're looking forward to moving our platform into stopping this kind of abuse across MMOs. We don't want anyone to have to go what we went through. And that's been our mission since day one. We want to call to attention that these things happen in MMOs. It's not just a real life thing, because MMOs are real to many people.
Yeah. I mean, I met him in person. I spent nearly like a week with this person in Germany. It might have been started through a game, but like this is real life, definitely.
This is part of the culture too.
Yeah.
This is definitely a part of the gaming culture. Well, it's just a game. It's just a game to him too. You know, we want our gaming communities to be safe from these types of predators. I can say that we've received several emails from multiple people across the servers. You know, this kind of person is actually in RFC now. What do we do? They're asking for advice.
Wow.
They want to change things. They want to out people. They want to make it to where this shit doesn't happen anymore. It's almost normal when it comes to MMOs that women are treated like this, and everybody just turns away.
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. No, but I just wanted to say that it's not just women, honestly.
Yeah.
This thing can happen the other way around, perfectly the same. Like, absolutely.
And it can happen in heterosexual relationships. I mean, not like you have friends that are the same sex as you, but it doesn't mean that you're not in it regardless. I mean, just whatever sexual orientation you claim. I think that it's important to recognize it's not just women and men, but it's also friendships. Like these kind of things can happen in friendships too.
Yes.
There doesn't have to be any romantic.
No, like in family as well.
Yeah, in family. Like this is
humans.
Yeah. And I think if any man were to come to us and ask us for help for this happening to them in game, we would absolutely welcome them with open arms, because they've experienced it too. We don't want to perpetuate the stereotype that this only happens to women. Absolutely not. It doesn't.
Right.
And I say to the people that want to stay out of it, they're only enabling this sort of behavior. They should be a part of the discussion. Everyone should be a part of the discussion. They need to listen to what we're saying. And they even need to recognize his actions at this point as huge red flags that there's something wrong in our community, that people are still backing this sort of behavior.
Yeah. I don't think not talking about it is helpful, personally.
No, I think it only enables that culture.
But there seemed to be a whole lot of not talking about it. This all unfolded while I was on vacation, and as soon as I got home and plugged in my computer, I searched YouTube for Anonymous Janes. The only thing I found on Monday was a podcast from MMO.com whose treatment of the subject made me physically sick. I wasn't able to hide the disgust in my voice as I'm rereading the host's comments. We were talking about this podcast covering of what has happened. I just wrote down all of it, and I wanted your take on it. Here we go. And I'm saying what he said. One of the quotes from the article is, he peer pressured me into masturbating in front of him on camera on Skype. And I'll add that when he said that, the other host just started laughing. And they quoted the article from PC Gamer and said, I cried after. I was a huge mess. I didn't like it. I was upset, and he kept begging me to do it. And then the host said, how do you peer pressure somebody into masturbating in front of you on camera? If these were children, there'd be a real problem here with undeveloped minds, but this is an adult that voluntarily ended up masturbating on camera.
First, I'd like to say that I don't think 18 is quite an adult.
Yeah.
But yes. Legally, yes. But.
Then his co-host said, God, it's like made me sick when he said this. So like he went over this story of someone crying, upset, being coerced into doing something they were not wanting to do, and making light of that and laughing about it. And then his co-host said, quote, I actually thought this one was funnier. During this time, he continued making aggressive and unwanted sexual advances toward Brenda. He would do things like calling me a slut and trying to make it in a sexual manner, but it wasn't. You could tell it wasn't. Brenda said, I wasn't allowed to touch myself without his permission. Okay, and now I'm continuing to quote what they said. Okay, so for me, I think this was some kind of consensual dominatrix thing or BDSM thing going on. And when he turned his attention to other girls as well, these girls got mad about it. There's no way someone over the internet is convincing you not to touch yourself without his permission. He's not making you do it. You're doing it because you're kind of you're in on the role play, you know? That's what he said.
Wow.
I'm going to put myself on the line here, but I am actually a practitioner of kink. And that man is not a dominant. He had never portrayed himself as a dominant. So this had nothing to do with BDSM.
One of the most important principles of BDSM is that it is consensual.
Consensual. Yes, thank you. So that's how I'm so well versed in consent. That is, I mean, you can consent to being, taken advantage of or whatever. That's as long as you consent to what you're doing, it's okay.
Yeah.
But no one consented to this.
And she basically did it because she didn't want to see him mad, I guess, or...
I mean, that's coercion. That is not consent.
Yeah,
Correct.
Exactly. And that's the point. He also stated to me once that he has nothing to do with the BDSM stuff, but he's into, like, he likes to handle women pretty roughly when it comes to the sexual thing.
Well, I'm glad that he knows that he's not a part of the BDSM thing because, I don't know, BDSM requires consent and he didn't ever receive any of that.
Yeah. He pressures people into doing this. And it is absolutely possible to be pressured into these things through the internet. Absolutely.
She was terrified. So when he did that, she was 18 and 5 months along into being 18. She was hardly an adult. Her mental state, I mean, I can't speak for her, but I know myself at 18, and I don't think I would have ever seen that coming.
Same. Absolutely.
I was 18 when my emotionally abusive relationship started. And so I know what that's like to get pulled into it at that age.
Yeah.
And so I have sympathy for her.
And she reached out to several people and she said, hey, this stuff is happening to me and I don't feel good. And it doesn't make me feel good that I did these things. And that person became immediately concerned and they confronted him. And then all of a sudden the person that she had confided in was gone. That's the pattern, and anytime someone catches on to what he's doing, they disappear.
I remembered being lured into the hell that would consume my college years at barely 18 years old. I remembered how great and magical it all seemed in the beginning.
It isn't all bad, and that's the worst part. It isn't all bad. The beginning is stellar. It's awesome. It's all you'd ever dreamed of. It's love bombing, right?
He's the perfect person ever.
Everything you ever, well, not even asked for, you just wished for, and even more maybe. And then little by little, dark spots appear, but you're willing to ignore those because we're only humans. Everyone has their faults, and it's fine. It's okay. It's something you can deal with. But with the time, those problems get bigger and bigger and bigger, and by then you're so deeply involved, emotional, that you can't just unbuckle and jump out when the roller coaster is basically on full speed. That's basically like offing yourself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, or at least it's what it feels like. I remember that when I decided 2 weeks before I actually left the project to leave. And I remember this emptiness and loneliness inside of me, even though I was still speaking to him, because I decided to leave him. I knew I would leave. I needed to, because otherwise this whole thing would end really bad for me, like really, really bad. We're speaking here. And when I actually left, and that was a surprise to me, it did hurt. Like physical pain was there, but I also felt this relief. I cried, I remember, because I lost something I loved, but I felt relieved because all of this weight, all of this, what's the word for when you have to take care of something? Your responsibility. All this responsibility, basically, is gone. It's gone. And that's the only way you actually get to know how much weight you were carrying with you the whole time.
And the only way to get rid of this person or a person like this is to cut them off completely. You have to go no contact.
Yeah.
You cannot be in contact with him anymore or anyone else like him. It's important that women and men both recognize that when this abuse is happening to them, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop until you say no more and you block them in every way possible.
In my experience, I reached out to a friend of mine that was a priest, and he told me that the way I was talking to him was the same way that women who are physically abused speak to him. And I was shocked to hear that. I was like, but this isn't the same. And he said, you sound the same. And I was like, well, what should I do? Like I know I need to leave this person, but should I should I go see him and tell him? And he was like, no, listen to me. Just send a text and cut off all the contact. Like, do not interact with him again.
No.
And I'm so glad I listened.
Yeah, absolutely. It could have escalated for you. Many times a physical abuse is after emotional abuse.
Right. That's why this is so important. Is there any way you can describe what it's like to live through emotional abuse to someone who's never experienced it?
It's hard to describe what it feels like to have your mind taken advantage of. You don't want to hurt somebody who's hurting, right? And he would always portray himself in this hurting situation, like he was the victim. So a lot of us kind of played into that. Like the suicide threats are a good example. He blatantly threatened suicide, but it was... he said, if anything ever happens to me, here's my sister's phone number. And I said, excuse me? Like, I freaked out because I'm like, I don't want this person to kill themselves because of me. Like, that's not what's going to happen. And I'm empathetic in that way. And I think a lot of women experience the same thing. I think the best way to describe it would be like a roller coaster.
But a shitty one.
Yeah, a really shitty one. You're going at full speed at ups and downs constantly. There's constant chaos, constant feeling good, feeling down, feeling good, feeling down. There's always constant chaos, always drama. And the roller coaster doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And once you decide to get off the roller coaster, you have to unbuckle yourself and jump out. And then you just go crashing right into the concrete and all your bones are broken, you know? It takes a long time to heal from that.
We would frequently fight, and those fights would always end with him caving in and telling me, oh, I should end myself, or basically making me fear losing him, giving me the feeling that all of this is my fault, and I had the power all along, and I used it to hurt him. Maybe that's what abuse is like. Like, you feel like you have the power over someone and you constantly use it to hurt them, when in reality, it's all a manufactured thing, right? Where they set you up.
So they basically trick you into think you're the one with all the power doing all the harm.
And since there are so many emotions involved and you care so deeply about this person, of course you don't want this person to get hurt. You don't, when all you ever want is for this person to be happy. And so you cave in and give them whatever they want.
It took me a long time to see it, and nobody, because I was the first of many, nobody told me it was abuse. When he started exhibiting the same signs as my mother did, which was the verbal put downs, that was probably like the big no-no. Verbal abuse is much more easily recognizable. My mom was a narcissist as well, and she was very emotionally abusive, very manipulative. To me, abuse kind of felt like love. As awful as that is to say, it's probably pretty normal for an abuse victim to have experienced abuse in the past without realizing it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, I also agree with that. So I personally had an abusive father, and it certainly feels like that's the only way to be loved in a way.
Yeah.
And it feels like it doesn't feel good, of course, but it's something you know. It feels like home, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like it belongs to you.
It took me many, many years to cut my own mother out of my own life, so I wish there was an easy way to identify emotional abuse. I would say the roller coaster.
Yeah, the roller coaster. And also, honestly, do you feel comfortable with the person? Do you really feel comfortable? Do you really trust them 100%? That was something to me that was also so confusing, because I wanted to trust him so badly. So badly. It was tearing me apart. It was tearing me apart. But I couldn't. I just, like, my guts told me there's something incredibly wrong here. Roller coaster, and do you feel safe? And do you feel loved and appreciated?
Generally, if people start to see these kind of signs outwardly, they'll tell you you're being abused. If you confide in a friend, maybe it's not so much you recognize it, but your friends recognize it. Listen to your friends,
Yeah, that's
These
a good
people care
thing.
about you.
Yeah.
They're trying to help you.
A lot of detractors will say that some of his victims, they seem to be very naive and inexperienced.
I'm in my 30s. I'm not inexperienced with men or women for that matter. I was perhaps not naive, maybe naive to the cycle of abuse itself that I didn't realize I had been so attracted to, but vulnerable. I think vulnerability was it. And it's not naive, and it's not inexperienced, and it's not being dumb. It's just being vulnerable, because sometimes humans are vulnerable.
It can also be a strength, right? And it can be a quality, and it can give a quality to your life, right? And makes you human.
Yeah.
So whoever takes advantage of the vulnerability, that's a hard word, of other people is a, sorry, but that's a fucking monster, to say it in his favorite word.
I was naive and vulnerable at 18. I believed everyone was fundamentally good, and that by showing love and kindness, even the worst person can come around. Does that mean I deserved it?
Did I know that he was basically lying to me all the time? Yes, I knew. Mm-hmm. But I was somehow hoping that if I would stay his friend and be always there, love him unconditionally, he would kind of better himself. I wasn't dreaming of, riding into the sunset and something. That wasn't the goal. The goal for me was to make him understand that he's worth loving. You know what I mean?
I do.
That he's a human being who deserves to be loved, and he's a human being who doesn't need to manipulate people in order to have all the success with women and people and whatever.
One thing that struck me about the Janes was their lack of ill will towards their abuser. It made me feel more than a little hateful in comparison. The last time my abuser reached out to me through a friend, I told him to eat a bag of dicks. It was petty, but it felt good. The Janes are bigger than me, and I think it's because their unity makes them greater than the sum of their parts.
When it comes to this particular person, we really, really want him to get help.
Absolutely.
We really, really want him to own up to what he did. It doesn't have to be today. You know, it can be get help and then own up. Anyone enabling him, any of his current victims, they need to encourage him to at least seek some help. This has already gone above and beyond by us reporting it to authorities. And at this point, the only way that he would be able to even remotely get himself out of this situation with us is to get help, to recognize and understand that he hurt these women and admit it.
At the time of this recording, there are 12 Anonymous Jane audio confessions on their website, plus one Anonymous Joe. I asked them if there are more Janes and Joes out there that just haven't come forward yet.
There are.
There are, yeah.
There are. We are in contact with a lot of them, and we're pretty sure that there is enough out there as well.
They know that they're welcome to join us.
Yeah.
I think a lot of them are terrified. In fact, there are women in our private chat that they haven't even told their story. They're just in there for support. This has always been you can be a part of this if you want sort of thing.
Yeah. I feel like if I had spoken up earlier, I could have stopped a lot of pain to be, caused.
Yeah. Can I address something though? There has been a pretty disgusting theme amongst people who don't believe us or have been pretty vocal about us, that I myself had manipulated all of these women into telling their stories. I don't know if you'd heard that one.
I haven't, actually.
That's not true. I spent you can ask Amparo, because I messaged her at 5:00 in the morning, freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, did I manipulate these women by giving my story first? Did it twist their own stories, Did I in any way ask you guys questions or baited any of these responses that you gave? I did not. I know I didn't.
Absolutely
now,
not. Yeah.
But I mean, I was just beside myself because that's what an adult does when they're accused of these things. When somebody says, you hurt me, when someone says you abused me, when someone says you manipulated me, you don't think to yourself, no, I didn't. And that's not the first thing you should respond. Mm-hmm. When someone says you hurt me like that, then you reevaluate yourself and you think about it and you ask the people that you may have hurt, did I hurt you? And if they say yes, then you acknowledge that you did hurt somebody, because that's emotional maturity.
And that's what you did. I mean, that's absolutely what you did. Yeah. I remember, you contacted me, and I was actually happy. I was thinking, oh my God, something is happening. So we can actually do something about this. We can stop this eventually. I can only speak for myself, but to me, this is not manipulation. I was actually offered an opportunity and I took it. And I'm pretty sure I speak for all of the other Janes we have in our group that they feel the same way.
In the end, when we all came together and we started talking, we realized we don't hate each other.
Absolutely not.
We forgive each other. There's almost like a blanket of forgiveness over the Janes, that if you have hurt each other, then it's pretty much an understanding right now that it was something you did when you were lied to and manipulated.
Yeah.
It's nice. I've never had this many female friends before in my life.
In the last few weeks, I was standing somewhere really often thinking, I miss him. I fucking miss him for whatever reasons I do. And now I'm standing here and I have my girls now. Like, it's so soothing and there's so much forgiveness in that, and saying that whatever happened, you weren't under control, so it doesn't matter. There's no shame in that, in whatever you did. And I think that's amazing, and it's so fulfilling, actually. And it feels so much better than anything I had before, with him, I'd say. So
this was the first time I'd ever talked to anyone who experienced the same kind of abuse I did. I couldn't help but feel a kinship with these women and be inspired by their courage. If you're a victim of online abuse and you're ready to talk, there's a place on their website where you can share your story.
There is a tab on there to submit your own story. It goes directly to our email. We read over it. We protect identities of people if we need to by changing their names. or you can submit a voice recording, whatever it is that you would like to submit to us. And it has drop-down menus where you can actually select different games, because we don't want this to be just about Final Fantasy. We want this to be for gaming, for video gamers, to discuss these things happening to them in video games and outside of video games.
And make it less of a taboo as well to
Yes.
talk about these things. And, I think ultimately the goal should be that when someone speaks up, I think not even a single person should go, oh, this is drama, or
Yeah.
because that's just, sorry, I think we're beyond, high school.
It's the culture,
Yeah. And we need to move past that, actually, as a society, I think.
Start addressing drama.
Absolutely.
As not drama, but someone's actual experience as a person in this world. This happened to them, and you can't, when you say it's drama, you're invalidating their experience and their hurt.
Yeah.
Just because something is not pleasant, it doesn't mean you don't have to speak about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe that is it too. Maybe it's just not pleasant. They don't want to hear it because it's uncomfortable for them. But these are the uncomfortable truths that we have to start talking about.
And I think especially in the gaming world, it's hard because why do people play those games? Because they don't want to, they don't want to be part of this world we're living in for a few hours, right? To relax. So when someone brings problems into this world, people don't want to react to them or want to push them aside because they want to stay in their bubble, right? But unfortunately, this bubble will burst if we don't take care of these things.
If you want a bubble where nobody has problems ever, maybe try a single player game.
Exactly.
Exactly. We know that this is just a small chink in the armor of the big problem here.
Yeah. It's a good
I feel
start.
like this may be the first time in MMO history where a group of women has come forward and openly discussed being emotionally and mentally abused by someone they met in a video game.
I think so too.
I can't recall this ever happening before.
Me neither. At least not in that range.
Well, not in this range. No, I mean, Twitch streamers have their problems. They get called names, and females are called thoughts and whatever other bullshit names they come up with for women who are, obviously better than them. That kind of abuse is not okay, but it's obvious abuse. And I think that's what makes a difference here, is that sometimes the mental and emotional abuse isn't obvious. Yeah.
So do you have anything else to add? I'm done with questions.
Maybe what we should address as well, if people think or recognize themselves with an abusive nature, I would encourage them to go seek help. There is help. Definitely.
Absolutely.
You can find the Phoenix Down Initiative on Twitter at PDI_official, and their website is anonymousjanes.wordpress.com. I want to thank Jane 1 and Jane 2 for graciously spending so much time with me and for inspiring me to join the fight against online harassment and abuse. If you're a victim of online abuse, or if people you care about are being victimized, don't be afraid to reach out for support. Together, we can make our communities safer, and we can prevent harm before it happens.